Thank you, everybody, for joining us today for this webinar. My name's Roy Hoagland. I'm one of the staff members here at the Virginia Environmental Endowment, and I'm currently managing the James River Water Quality Improvement Program that you're interested in. Also on the line leading the webinar is Emily Mills, who is the Chesapeake Conservancy's lead on the resource planner and VEE's liaison on everything concerning it, so please make a note of her name. Before we get into the planner, I just wanted to remind people that the second round of the James River Water Quality Improvement Program is open for grant applications. They are due on the 15th of June. I suggest you take a look at the strategic investment plan and last year's awards to get a feel for what was received well by the VEE board. There have been no changes in the priorities or any of the basic elements. It's a $100,000 minimum request. A match is preferred but not required. Multi-year grants are okay. I'm trying to think of what else. If you go to VEE.org and to the James River Water Quality Improvement Program page, you'll get a whole host of information. Last year, the board awarded about $4 million worth of, I guess it was just slightly over $4 million worth of grants. So let me say a few things about the planner, and then I'm going to turn it over to Emily. We partnered with the Chesapeake Conservancy to create this planner. The primary rationale being we wanted to ensure that we invested the money in the best places for getting the biggest bang for the buck. We're very pleased with the planner. It's been very useful to applicants in terms of them focusing where they might do their work. It's been very useful to VEE in looking at the grant applications and trying to prioritize which ones are at the top of the list. I want to say that the planner is a new tool. The people who used it this year were our guinea pigs, as Emily says. We are currently refining it, and I would welcome any comments you have about making it better, making it easier. The planner is intended, as Emily says, for your use more than anybody else. And Emily has been wonderfully responsive over the year to making changes where it is possible. Or continuing to have the Chesapeake Conservancy and Emily make changes over the course of this year. So please feel free to contact Emily if you have any questions, concerns, suggestions about the planner. The one final thing is we still do not have the Upper James included in the planner. That is going to happen this year. There was we had a delay on getting the necessary data, but our hope is that by the end of the summer we'll have it ready to go. So I'm going to turn it over to Emily for the substance of the discussion and let her take charge and lead the rest of the webinar. And I'll be on through the whole thing, so if there are comments or questions when it is all done, feel free to ask me. Thanks. Emily?
Thank you so much, Roy. So here's the general outline of the webinar today. We're going to go over how to access the restoration planner first, and then I'll go through some different use cases of how applicants to the James River Grant Program can use the tool, and also highlight some new features of the web application since our last webinar during last year's grant round. All right, so let's go back to the VEE's James River Grant Program page. Like I said here, we've got the strategic investment plan. One of the links at the bottom of the page is this restoration planner link. That'll take you to a Google form, and after you input your information, you'll receive an email like this one with the access information to the tool. So once you get your email, you can click on the link to the tool. There's also some login credentials here. User ID James Partner, and password is Restore1. That's what you're going to use when you get to this login screen here. So once you press OK, you're into the tool. The first thing you'll see is this intro or splash screen welcome page. I'm not going to read through this now because we'll walk through this throughout the webinar, but one thing I do want to point out is this VEE Web Viewer resource page. So if you click on that link in the splash screen, which will bring you here, this has more links and resources for you to check out. It includes a user guide to the restoration planner. It also includes a data documentation page, so that'll go over all of the layers that are in the tool, what the source is, and more details about the prioritization layers that I'll talk about in a minute. And then it also has some metadata about our high-resolution land cover data as well. The webinar recording in here right now is the last webinar. So when we're done with this webinar, I will also post the recording for you to reference later as well. So we sort of went over the splash screen a little bit. So these instructions will also be available in this information widget at the top right-hand corner of your screen. And then I just want to show, sort of orient you all to what's in the app and all the buttons and whatnot that's in here. So in the top left-hand corner, you'll find a bunch of navigation tools. So you've got your zoom buttons, plus and minus. The home button will just take you back to the home screen that we're at right now. You also have a line of widgets here that will do various tasks. The first one is a base map gallery. So if you want to look at different background maps, you can choose those. I like having the imagery on so we can see the landscape. There's a measure tool, which I'll demo later. There's also an add data button. So if you have your own ArcGIS online layers, or if you have a CSV file of points with GPS coordinates in it, anything like that, you can upload that data here and interact with it in the current session of the web application. We've also got two additional widgets at the top here that are new since last time. So this is a select tool, which I'll demo, as well as a print function. And both of those are going to be used in generating parcel-specific PDF reports, which I will demo in a bit. So the first thing that you will see on the map here is the outline of the James, upper, middle, and lower James. You'll notice, as Roy mentioned before, we don't have LiDAR data available for the upper and a small portion of the middle James. So this layer right here that you see is covering the extent of the data that we do have right now. So hang tight if you're proposing projects up in the upper James area. We should have data in there by the end of the year, if not before. The first layer that you see here is HUC 12 watersheds, symbolized by % buffer coverage. So the lighter green is where there is more unbuffered streams within 35 feet. And then the darker green is showing HUCs that have greater percentage of buffer coverage. So I'll talk about this later, but if if you have a general interest area, you can use this layer to help you determine, okay, what HUC 12s might need more buffer coverage or restoration in those areas. Most of the layers that I'll talk about today, if you click on them, they will generate a pop-up box that gives you more information about that feature. So here you can see for the HUCs, we've got the total acres in the 35-foot buffer zone of our flow path data. Out of that, how much is already buffered, how much is unbuffered, and how much restoration opportunity area there may be. So in this particular instance, we've got about 70% buffer coverage. If you click on one of the darker ones, you'll see this one has about 95% buffer coverage. So the lighter green is areas where we potentially might want to target for buffer restoration. So how do we interact with the layers? So on the right-hand side here, you have the layers and the legend boxes. So when you're interacting with the layers, some important things to keep in mind are the layers are in groups. So if you see these little gray arrows on the left side of the layer groupings, that will expand the group. And in order to view a layer, you need to have both the group layer checked on and the individual layer checked on. So in the boundary layers group, we have a lot of sort of reference layers that you might want to look at. So we've got the area of potential effects down here, which was designated by VEE as an area of interest. We also have counties for the entire James now, as well as soil and water conservation districts. If you click on those, you get the names as well, and then HUC 10 and HUC 12 watershed boundaries as well. So these are just for your reference and adding some context to the layers that are in the app. There's also a group called ecological layers. I won't go through these in detail, but if you're interested in wetlands or VIMS data sets, looking at where impairments are located, those are all in the ecological layers grouping. What we're mostly going to use today is the prioritization data sets group layer. So let's jump right into some different cases of how you might want to use the tool. So one case I want to demonstrate is where you may have a parcel or multiple parcels in mind where you know that you're going to propose projects for the James River Water Quality Improvement Program. So in that case, I recommend using the search bar in the upper left-hand corner. This works just like Google Maps, so you can type in an address or a landmark, something that will bring you to your desired area of interest. So I'm going to go ahead and type in an address there. And this will bring me to the parcel I'm interested in. So right now I'm in the Middle James, so I want to go over to my prioritization data sets grouping, check on the Middle James, check on the Middle James layer. And then I want to check on the parcel prioritization layer. So this layer is symbolized with colors showing the different priority or tier levels for restoration opportunity. So we really want to focus on Tier 1 and Tier 2 parcels because these have been identified as areas where restoration projects could have a great impact on water quality. If you're interested in doing buffer projects, we also have restoration opportunity areas layers in this grouped layer as well. So you can click on either the 35-foot or the 100-foot buffer areas, whichever one you're interested in, whichever one is more appropriate for your proposed projects. And then we also have in here drainage areas, which is an important layer to know about. So if we zoom into this parcel, we can see that there's some unbuffered areas along the main branch here and along some of the smaller streams down here as well. So if we turn on the drainage areas layer, we can see if we were to implement a buffer in this area, what area of the upland land would that be treating? And then you can sort of, if you click on each drainage area, it'll also tell you the land use or land cover breakdown within that. So we can see this one is mostly made up of agricultural lands. So we specifically looked at agriculture, impervious, and turf categories to try and get an idea of how much area would a buffer implementation be treating that is covered with land cover categories of concern when it comes to runoff of nutrients and sediment. So if you're not doing buffer projects, you don't have to use these layers if you don't want to. So let's turn these off. One layer I do want to point out is this estimated soil loss layer down at the bottom. If you turn that on, it'll show through the transparencies of the parcel. And so that layer is showing areas where, in red, where we would be concerned about erosion potential. So if you're doing, for example, like stream bank restoration or upland BMPs, like grass buffers or grass waterways, etc., this might be a layer that you might be interested in looking at. So right now I want to demo how to create a parcel PDF report that you can attach to your project applications. So what you want to do, let's say you want to be working on this parcel right here. I'm going to go ahead and turn back on the ROA areas for 100-foot buffers. So what you want to do to create a parcel PDF is go up here to the Select widget. And under Select, if you click on the arrow, there's a couple different options. You can select by point, which will just be a click, or you can select by rectangle if you want to select multiple parcels at a time. Right now, I'm just going to do one parcel, so I'll do Select by point. When you're hovering on your map, it'll say click to add a point, so I can click anywhere on that parcel. So in the Select tool, you need to have the checkbox selected on the layer that you want to select, and in this case, it's the parcels. So once you have it selected and also zoomed into the area that you want to map, once you have that selected, you can go ahead and click on the Print widget back in the top left-hand corner. If you go under Advanced, there's a couple things you're going to want to click on here. One is Preserve the Map Extent. So change that toggle button there. That's going to give you a map of your exact screen right here. And then you're also going to click on Include Attributes. So that's important because we not only want a map of our screen right now, but we also want to grab all of this parcel's prioritization information and include that in our report. So go ahead and press Print after you've selected your parcel. And after a few moments, this parcel report will be generated. Forgot to mention, you can change the title of your report if you would like. So you could label this, for example, the address or proposed project number 1, etc. But once you generate the report, you just click on this, and a nice PDF version of a map of the parcel as well as all of the attributes attached to that parcel will be included in this PDF. So you can go ahead and download that. You can save it wherever you'd like and attach or append this PDF to the end of your application to VEE when you submit it. I also want to point out that you might see that a parcel you already have in mind or that you might have in your project queue, it may or may not rank as a top priority like Tier 1 or Tier 2. And I just wanted to mention that that is totally okay, and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't propose that project at all. It just means that you might need to provide some additional information to VEE because really the data is meant to be a decision, like a decision aid tool. It's not a decision-making tool. So the data is only a supplement to your on-the-ground knowledge and, the information you gain from site visits, etc. So if you see that a parcel is not ranking highly, that's okay. It doesn't mean you shouldn't propose doing work there, but I think VE would like to see some additional information, perhaps, like for example, if you're doing a stream bank restoration project, for example, on a Tier 4 property next door, You could say something like, we know from site visits that the bank is really in size, and it's also important for trout habitat, XYZ reasons, and this is why you should fund our project. So additional information like that the restoration planner doesn't necessarily give you is really important when thinking about projects that may not necessarily be on a high priority parcel. We don't want to exclude other proposed projects. Okay, so I want to show how to also do this for multiple parcels if you have, say, like a stream reach that you're interested in that cross parcel boundaries. So if you go to the select tool again, I'm going to press clear here. That'll clear my selection. And let's say that I'm interested in looking at this entire stream reach, which crosses 3 different parcels here. So first, I want to show the measure tools. If you go back to the measure widget, first I want to know approximately, like if I implemented projects along this stream reach, how many stream feet would that be? So I can click on this arrow right here to select the unit that I want to measure. So I want feet. And then you can just click on the map and draw some points connecting your line. I'm not going to be super precise for this demonstration purposes, but double click to end the line, and that'll give you the linear distance in feet. So this is a handy little tool for example, like measuring buffer width in a particular area or measuring stream reaches. So I'm going to clear that. And next I'm going to select by rectangle to select multiple parcels. So I'm going to select these 3. It's basically going to select all the parcels that intersect with the shape that you draw. So now I have multiple parcels selected, and I can actually do the same exact process here. Map extend, include attributes, and print. And I'm going to call this stream reach 1. If I go ahead and print that, this will also generate a nice map, but it will also give you multiple parcels attributes in one report. So I open that up, I get the nice map, and then the 3 parcels information are all attached to the report. So again, you would download this and append it to your application that would propose various BMP implementation along this stream reach crossing 3 different parcels. Another feature that's new since last time I want to show is how to export different features from the attribute table into a spreadsheet. So let's say it might be more useful if we have, more than a handful of parcels, but since we have these selected, let's just go in and look at the parcel attribute table. So to do that, I'm going to go to my layer that I currently have selected. If you click on the ellipsis button on the far right-hand side and click View an Attribute Table, then this layer will pop up in a new tab within the table. So this is a nice view of the data if you're used to working in spreadsheets, for example. If you click on Options on the far left-hand side of the table, you can click on Show Selected Records. So this will just filter to the specific parcels that you currently have selected. And then you can view all of the attributes that you would view in the pop-up box, just in a table format here. And then another thing you can do under Options is click on Export Selected to CSV. So this is a great way to generate a spreadsheet of multiple parcels that you're interested in proposing work on. And it could be that you have like 20 to 30 parcels that you don't want to generate maps and this report for. In that case, you can generate the spreadsheet of parcels of interest, and you can just append that to your application to VE. That'll work just fine as well. So to clear selection, I'm going to go back to the select tool and do clear. And then the other major use case I want to go over is, let's say you don't have specific parcels in mind of where you want to do a project, but you probably have a general geography that you're working in or an area of interest. So I want to show how to filter and narrow down to identify some high priority parcels that you could potentially propose projects for. So I'm going to close the attribute table by clicking the down arrow here, temporarily hide that. And I am going to click on the home button to take me back out to the home screen. Again, this layer here, the HUC 12% unbuffered, might be a nice way to sort of zoom in and identify a HUC that may need some restoration. So let's zoom into this light colored area here around Richmond, and let's see if we can find some potential parcels that might be good to work at. So let's see. I'm going to put on my imagery hybrid base map so I can see some reference labels here. So let's zoom into Falling Creek Farms area. And I'm going to turn back on my parcel layer. So come over here in your layers and check the box. And so you can see how just by zooming around the map, your eye is drawn towards the oranges and the yellows, which are the high tier, high priority parcels. So you could start clicking on these and getting information about how much total buffer restoration opportunity there might be on a parcel, what's the land cover like, how much vegetated area is there on this parcel versus restorable, etc. You can also see a bunch of information about where this parcel is, county, soil and water conservation district, etc. So let's go back to the attribute table here. And one thing I want to show is the filter by map extent option. So if you click on this button, the table will automatically update to just show features that are currently in your map view. So what I want to do right now is I want to see, I want to sort this table to bring the top priorities up to the top so I can explore those properties. So I'm going to click on tier, which is the attribute I'm interested in, and I'm going to click sort ascending. That'll bring the tier 1 properties up to the very top. And then I can simply click on the row, the button right next to that row, and it'll highlight that in the map for me. So I can click on the next one. I can start clicking on tier 2 properties. This is a nice way to sort of explore the map and see which properties are the highest potential for restoration. And then once you identify those, you can click on them, zoom in, take a look at the land cover, explore the other layers in here, take a look at the soil loss potential on the property. You can look at wetlands if you're interested in certain ecological layers, etc. All right, so I'm going to clear the selection here. Make sure this one's clear as well. Good. And then there's one last function that I would like to show that may be of use for groups that are looking at multiple properties or haven't necessarily started narrowing in on particular parcels yet, and that's the filter tool. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. And we're going to go over to Amelia County. So let's say that I want to see all the Tier 1 and 2 parcels within a county or within a soil and water conservation district that I'm working in, or any sort of geographic boundary. What I'm going to show now is the filter tool. So if you go to options again on the left-hand side of the attribute table, click filter, and this will allow us to add different expressions to narrow in on the parcels that we want to explore. So first, I'm going to select from the drop-down list tier, because that's an attribute that I'm interested in. And I want to look at the tiers that are at most 2. So that'll give me tiers 1 and 2. I can also add an expression, and then this will pop up, display features in the layer that match all of the following expressions. So it's going to give me parcels that are tier 1 and 2, and that are located in, let's pick a county. So here, I can click unique, and that'll give me a drop-down box that will populate with all of the unique county names. There we go. So I want to select Amelia County, and I'm going to press OK. So I just turned off the HUC12 layer that was on top of everything. So now we can see all the Tier 1 and Tier 2 properties that are falling within Amelia County. So I just turned the county boundaries on in yellow there so you could see. So in the attribute table, I'm going to disable my filter by map extent because I want to see, even if I'm zoomed in, I want the table to show me all of the parcels in Amelia County. So we can see here in the bottom left-hand corner that there's 124 parcels that fall under those expressions that we specified. And then, again, we can export all to CSV under the options button on the left-hand side there. Okay. And then if you open up that, you'll get 124 rows representing all of the parcels that met those criteria that we filtered for. So you can, some suggested things you could do with this is you could do some simple math in the spreadsheet, and you could provide some information in your application, such as, you know, in Amelia County, there's 124 parcels that fall into Tier 1 and Tier 2 priority. They have, you know, if you sum this column, they have a total of this many buffer opportunity acres that would be treating this much acreage of upland area that's ag, impervious, or turf. And we want to target, say, 25% of those parcels. So that could be a nice way to narrow in on some high priority parcels within a larger geographic area of interest. Now, if we want to delete the filter and just get all of our parcels back, you just go back into the filter function, and you can click these X's to delete those expressions. And press OK. And then we should get all our parcels back. You'll also find an Add Data widget in the top left-hand corner. I'd like to demonstrate how you can add your own data into your current session of the application. So if you click on the Add Data widget, you'll see a few different options for how you can add data. So first I want to show if you have a file prepared that you'd like to import into the tool. So one option is a CSV spreadsheet. For example, if you have like sample points, anything with a GPS coordinate already in spreadsheet format, That's one option. So I'd like to show an example of that first. So if you click Browse, you'll be able to navigate on your computer to the folder where you have the data. And I have a CSV file ready, and go ahead and open that. And that will open the points layer that I have uploaded. If you click on each point, it'll show attribute information that's in your CSV file. If we look at what that looks like, it's just a file full of GPS coordinates, but if you have additional attributes in your spreadsheet, those will show up in the app in the pop-up box. Another option besides the CSV spreadsheet is a zipped shapefile. So I'm going to show that, and I have just a polygon box that I delineated as an area of interest example. So I'm going to select this and open that up, and if I bring that in, that'll just bring in my polygon of interest, defining my geography. The URL tab has options for bringing in layers that are a web service or any of these other options via a URL. So you could just copy and paste a link in there. And then the final tab, Search tab, is going to allow you the ability to add ArcGIS Online content. So if your organization has your own ArcGIS Online account, you can search for your content in here. I also would like to show that you can search layers on ArcGIS Online, which provides a lot of different layers that may be useful to you as you're exploring the tool. So some examples are terrain, nape imagery. There's some soils layers in here. I'm going to go ahead and add this NDVI layer as an example, Normalized Difference Vegetation Index, so we can see what that looks like. And some of these you may have to zoom in pretty close to be able to see them. There it goes. For another example, let's search for USA soils. You can press the search button here. And I am going to choose one for an example of water table depth. So you just press add on the layer. It'll show up here in your legend, and it'll appear in your map. So as a reminder, any of these options where you're adding data, these will only be imported into your current session of the web application. So if you close out the app and come back in, the layers that you previously added will not be visible. It's just for your current session. So just a brief recap before I open it up for questions. The main new functionalities that we've added since the previous webinar and last year's grant round application are the parcel PDF generation and then the exporting spreadsheet function as well. So don't forget, when you're doing your parcel PDF reports, you need to use this select widget here to select the parcel first before you press print. And then when you press print, you need to go into the advanced button and make sure this include attributes is on. Otherwise, the attributes won't get recognized to be populated into the report. And then finally, the export spreadsheet option can be found in the attribute table. To get to the attribute table, don't forget, you need to click on the ellipsis button here on the right-hand side, view an attribute table. And the spreadsheet option is right at the bottom, export to CSV. So one last thing I would like to mention is we're currently working with VE on a data agreement form. And so the purpose of that is so that grantees that want to interact with the data in their own GIS, or grantees that would like access to tax ID information, you can go ahead and fill out that form, send it to me with Roy CC'd, and we'll be able to share that data with you for internal use. So that is also an option for those that want to interact with the data in their own systems. So we're still finalizing the language of VE on that form, but it will be downloadable eventually from the splash screen, and we will also post it on the resource page here as well. And you can always contact me too if you're interested in acquiring the data as well. So with that, I'm going to unmute everyone and we can open it up to have some discussion and Q&A. How to get into the ArcGIS. Okay. Let's go back to how to enter the application. All right. So let's go back to the very beginning and go over that just to make sure everyone knows how to get in. So the login request form is accessed from VEE's website, the James River Water Quality Improvement Program page. And so at the very bottom, you'll see a link for Restoration Planner. If you click on that link, it'll take you to a Google form where you'll enter your information, contact information, and what organization you're with. And what that'll do is that'll send an email to your inbox with the link to the tool, and then it also has the login credentials that you'll need to log in. So the whole idea behind this is that we want this tool to be somewhat private and used by people who are, seriously considering applying to the grant program. So the idea behind this process was to, collect people's information so that we know who is given access to the tool, and we can track that over time as well. So that's why this is set up the way it is. We would encourage, if you're wanting to share this with others, I would encourage you to share this page with them so that they can learn more about the grant program as well, and not just see the tool, because it is sort of for a targeted set of users, if that makes sense. Roy, do you have anything to add?
I would agree. I mean, I think any grant applicant, any interested grant applicant can access it through the current system. So it's open and available.
Is there a layer that shows kind of the priority areas or the places people are focusing on from the first round of applications, so we can make sure we're not duplicating targeted
That's
areas?
a good question. Laura, I think that might be a question for you. How do you feel about, because I have that information and it would be pretty easy to add it in. Roy, is that something that you would like to see?
I guess I would need to think about that. I'm not so sure how focused that is based on, I don't know who asked the question, but some of the grants are pretty widespread. Some are very narrow and specifically said they're going to target X number of parcels or specific parcels. I'd have to, Emily, we'd have to think about how we might do that and help. I think one other question might be, if whoever is an applicant, if they have a certain area, they can always give us a call before submitting the application and ask us whether there are groups that are already focused on that specific targeted area.
This is Amber. I wasn't going to ask this question because it's kind of specific to ours, but it might help other people because they may have the same question. So we are current grantee, and we are looking at Tier 1 and Tier 2 parcels for buffers. but there's definitely the chance that there will be landowners on a parcel that's listed as a tier 4, for example. And I know you mentioned that this is a guiding tool, but like in our case, we said we're going to do tier 1 and tier 2. That's what we're going to focus on. But if we go out on the site and we're like, this definitely needs restoration, I know it says tier 4, but you know, we're seeing evidence that it needs to be considered a tier 2. Are there certain, like we're trying to work on questions that would help inform that, like simple questions like while we're on site. And I'm curious if there's things that the resource, like the data that you're already bringing in that it's not looking at, that would be things that we could look at on site. Does that make sense? Like, what are the things that we could be looking at that the planner is not looking at that would help support that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I know you mentioned habitat.
Example, yeah, habitat. That was my example that I thought of earlier. So I can give you the rundown of what the tier and prioritization does consider is the buffer area, the opportunity area, and then the land cover within the drainage areas, the soil loss within the drainage areas. So those are both characteristics of, you know, what upland land area would it be treating. And then the other layers involved in the prioritization were impaired waters, whether the watershed has a implementation plan currently, and then whether it's in the area of potential effects. So things that are not included would be things like habitat, anything that's like, my one example is stream bank restoration. You may or may not be able to see some of that with the Russell layer that I showed, the soil loss layer. But like anything that's in stream, the restoration planner is probably not going to help you with because it's land-based, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. Simple question, when it says upland is ag, it doesn't know if it's livestock or not, is that correct?
Correct, yeah, that's another good point. So
if there's cattle
practices,
upland, that might be.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And so another example would be like whether livestock are excluded with fencing. That's another thing that we don't take into account. So those sort of like specific uses or also like nutrient management plans, conservation plans, things that are specific to that owner and how they use their land, that stuff isn't going to be captured with the things that we can produce just by looking at the aerial imagery, right?
Great.
So all those things are basically like anything that you would have to ask the landowner about, that's stuff that is not included.
Great.
I'll keep thinking on that and see if I can think of anything else.
Okay, thank you.
For the application, how much information for the parcels should be shown? If location was selected based on need of restoration from site visit, is it good to provide the parcel report? Yeah, I think in the case where, like kind of what we were just talking about, if most of the justification for doing restoration is from on-site knowledge, not necessarily what's in the restoration planner, I think it's still important to provide the parcel report. I mean, one good thing about it is that you get the map out of it. So it just gives you some like landscape context. Where is the stream? You know, how's the parcel set up? Are there buildings? Are there structures? So I think it is good to provide the report, even if it is a lower tier, or if you're going to provide, you know, supplemental information about practices or other reasons or justification for why restoration is necessary.
So, Emily, let me add, the application currently requires, under the original workings of the planner, a screenshot, and we'll be converting that to the parcel report.
Yes.
So it's a requirement of the application.
Yeah, I think so. The other thing about the parcel report is that it gives us the information that we need, which is the parcel ID. So, you know, if there's more information provided, but here's the parcel ID and here's a map, then that allows me and Roy to go in and say, okay, well, let's look at this a little bit closer. But we need that parcel ID to be able to zoom into where you're talking about. Yep, so the previous screenshot process, like Roy was mentioning, that will be replaced now with generating the parcel report. You can still do screenshots if you want. The information that we really need is the parcel ID. But the whole idea behind the parcel report is to just make it very nice, very standardized, and easy on the user, hopefully, for you guys to just be able to download the PDF and attach it.
Yeah, so once somebody has the grant and they're in the thick of implementing and they're reporting to VEE,
right?
When we've done whatever parcels we've done projects on, when we report those back to you to show you what people have accomplished, would you would I guess want to know which parcels from the planner those projects were done on?
That would be great.
And so
we haven't specified that. Yeah, we haven't specified in that reporting so far, but that's a great suggestion.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm just going to put our contact information here. If you have questions about any of the data that's in the web app or troubleshooting how to use it, please contact me with your questions. Also happy to receive feedback as well. So if you have ideas about, oh, it would be really cool if we could do this, please tell me because I want to hear that information as well. And then if you have questions about the grant application process and VE's program, here is the contact email for that. If folks email this JRWQIP@VEE.org, will you see their emails?
Yes, I will.
All right, great.
Yep.
I just want to say thank you again all for tuning in. Please reach out if you have any questions at all. I'm here to help throughout your application process. And again, I just want to point out the resource page that I showed earlier here. This is a great page with a lot of different resources for you, including the user guide. This is where we're going to post the webinar after it's done recording and processing. So if you ever need to watch it back again, here's where you can find it.